to the official podcast of FCS Fans Nation with your hosts Kylor Neal, Matthew Frazee, and Jamie Williams.
Fear the FCS. Bow down, FBS. We don't care how much money you have. We don't care how big your stadiums are. We don't care how loud your crowds are and how much College Game Day loves you, even when FCS has College Game Day, because the FCS came storming together and defeated the FBS this last week. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the FCS Fans Nation Podcast. Matthew Frazee, your unbiased Bison admin, Mr. Jamie Williams, Kylor Neal of Eagles Power Hour. Gentlemen, the FCS reigns supreme. And of course, Kylor's team, the Eagles, was one of those squads. Mr. Neal, tell me how you are feeling after a victory over the vicious FBS.
I mean, it's always good to get an FBS win, especially when the whole offseason I was saying if Eastern Washington can't beat UNLV, they're not a playoff team. Well, they beat UNLV. They look to be a playoff team. There were some things that, I mean, most people, when they didn't watch, they just, because no one really knew it was on the stadium app. Everyone was thinking it was ESPN Plus and all that, but the Mountain West has a weird, like, Pluto deal, so it was on stadium. Most people just see the score and they're like, oh man, it was a close game. If you watch the game, it was not a close game. Eastern was doing everything they could to lose and they still couldn't. Yeah. So that just shows you, like, this talent for talent, team for team, Eastern Washington was just 100% better than UNLV. So I'm happy, man.
Beautiful, beautiful. Jamie, are you just so pumped before we start getting to our fans' questions that the FCS is showing up in 2021, my man?
I am. You know, it's like that. I think you liken somebody in our group to the little brother, but it's like the little brother. It doesn't matter who it is. That if it's an FCS team taking on FBS, that's who we're rooting for. Maybe 100%. Not for Montana, but you know, we generally are. And that was, I mean, speaking of Montana, that was huge. That's a ranked team, more than two at Montana Grizzlies, but you beat a ranked team. Nice job.
Heck yeah, we've got tons of gear here repping these FCS victories. Jamie Williams, a Dukes fan, rocking Eastern Washington. Kylor, who's up on top of your head that you're rocking right now today?
No FCS team, but I am rocking a Vandal shirt, if you could tell, because they took down the heated rivalry from the north. The Simon Fraser, the Clan, I guess is what they are called, the D2 team from Canada. So you know what? I'm rocking Idaho because no one thought it could be done. But they were the powerful team. They dominated the Canadians. So go America, go USA, and go Vandals.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they play that D2 team plays Bishop Sycamore next week.
Exactly.
I think so. Yeah, with Southern New Hampshire Technology or whatever it is. I am wearing this shirt inside out. For those of you who can't see this, you're not watching on YouTube. That's completely fine. This is a standard looking blue shirt, and in the inside are the Kansas Jayhawks. You are disgusting. You don't deserve your shirt to be worn the right way because you stormed the field after beating FCS South Dakota by 3 points. So I am wearing your shirt inside out. Your logo is an embarrassment right now. We'll see you in March Madness because gross.
I was so mad that people were defending it on that post that I had. I was like, no, this isn't a pat me on the back. You are a Power 5 team. You are storming the field from beating a very below mediocre FCS team.
Oh,
like, yeah. Jesus Christ. So, everyone defending Kansas on my thread. No, hard pass.
Yeah.
Knuckleheads.
Yeah, get out of here, Kansas. Enjoy your next 10 losses. All right, gentlemen. As of last week, we revamped our podcast. Of course, this is the FCS Fans Nation podcast, ran and operated by the FCS Fans Nation page. We use our members' questions and discussions to guide our podcast, but we have revamped it to where we have more of a discussion roundtable feel. And typically that involves about 6 to 7 questions. So I decided we're going to stick with a template of 7 main questions before we get into quick hitters. And kind of as a joke, a little bit of play on the big three that the FCS has. If you talk to a fan from the Ohio Valley, a fan from the SoCon, it's amazing how it's almost like a power 7. So the segment we're going to refer to for our main topics, guys, is going to be the Big 7, and we're going to kick that off right now.
The top 7 FCS topics of the week. This is the Big 7.
Probably didn't see that one coming, did you, boys?
Did not.
I did some video design today. It was fun. More coming down the line on that.
It's all like a real show.
It's like a real show. Yep.
With segments and everything.
I know. It's going to be so much fun. I can't wait till you see the ending. All right, guys, make sure you listen to this whole podcast to catch all the way to the end. But we're going to kick it off right away, guys, with Mr. Keo Wilson. I think this is the best question of the main 7 ones that we got because there's so much to expand on with it. And his question is very simple. Which FBS win is the most consequential of the season? I mean, that is just a huge question because we had like not just basic teams with like a huge upset. We're talking about playoff implications. So, boys, let's get right into it. Jamie, what do you think, my man, when you look at all these teams that pulled off FCS upsets, which one is the most consequential? And I will throw this in as well. Our over-under segment in week 1 was 5.5 FCS wins over-under, and we're at 6. So pretty cool. What do you think, Jamie, most consequential as we move all the way into the playoffs?
So when I look at this question, I came up with 2 right away, and that was East Tennessee State and UC Davis for similar reasons. In general, I think both of them coming into the season are right near that playoff line. But I think East Tennessee State's not as a difficult a conference as UC Davis, so they could just win that conference and they're going to make the playoffs. UC Davis is going to be my answer for this reason. They still have Eastern Washington, Weber State, both Montanas, Sacramento State, all who are going to be fighting for playoff spots. So I know Eastern has their FBS win, but when it comes down to the committee and maybe let's say Montana's won the Big Sky and Eastern's in and Weber's in and UC Davis is that next team, and maybe they're going to finish second, but let's say they're that next team. No matter who they're up against, most likely for that at-large, they're going to have that win over an FBS team. So I think that's why I see that one as the most consequential, because I think it's got the most likelihood of being the reason the team makes the playoffs over another team.
So you don't see East Tennessee State as a team that's going to win the auto bid. You think they're going to be an at-large position?
I think they have a chance to win the Southern Conference. So I think they're more likely to win the Southern Conference than UC Davis is to win the Big Sky. Southern Conference is just throw it in a blender. We'll talk about that later. But East Tennessee State could clearly just win that. They're already in, so they're not in any kind of tiebreaker with the committee. So that's kind of where I lean that way.
Do you think it's more consequential there because, like, if you for a team that's at an at-large position, they already probably have a little bit of leeway in comparison to a team that is fighting for seeding. Like the leeway is going to be virtually non-existent. When you look at like a Montana, who's probably in a really good position to maybe look at a top 4 seed. We were kind of talking about this. It's crazy that after 1 week, already you're looking at teams with seeding. Like, let's just play basic hypothetical and off of history, right? Will most fans agree Sam Houston's going to run the table? Yes. So that's like a top 4 seed. Will most fans pick JMU to probably go undefeated or maybe only lose 1 game? Yes. Probably a top 4 seed. And now you have Montana, who we were on the over-under episode talking like, hey, what's their over-under for 1.5 FCS wins for them to possibly be top 5, top 6 seed? I mean, they win though that Eastern Washington Montana State game and they don't trip up. I mean, they're number 1 for sure. So are we looking at a situation where literally NDSU, SDSU could have 1 loss and not even be a top 4 seed traveling in the quarterfinals? I mean, I think the consequences are huge for those teams that now have a leg up. Eastern Washington, huge leg up and sacrifice. And just a little bit of history before I let Kylor jump in here. You think about 2014, Illinois State, they were 9-2 and NDSU was 9-2. 2 FCS losses for NDSU, an FBS and FCS loss for Illinois State. NDSU is the 3 seed, Illinois State the 2 seed. So if Illinois State had not been upset by Richmond, NDSU would have headed off to Illinois State in the playoffs in the semifinals. It's that thin of a margin for seeding. So I think those consequences are really big for the playoffs. Kylor, what do you think, man? Do you have a kind of a difference of opinion here, or what are you on here?
I mean, when I originally read this question, I was just thinking to myself, they're all the same. In the simple rating system, it's going to be 1.5. That's what it's kind of counted as. But then, when I listen to you guys in depth more, it started to make my brain think a little bit more than, if you would have asked me first. Because Jamie makes a great point. Which one probably is going to that's going to excel them to be an at-large. But then, Matt, you also make a great point. Well, I'm not just talking about the playoffs. I'm talking about which one is going to get home field advantage throughout the whole playoffs, which that may even be more of a factor. That might be the most important thing. If you get a 1 or 2 seed, I mean, look at what Sam Houston's done. They have never lost in the postseason at home. Montana, who wants to play at Griz in front of 25,000 fans in the middle of December?
No way.
I mean, if you're looking at maybe title contenders, these upsets were huge for South Dakota State. They were huge for Montana. But then I like what Jamie pointed out as, the Big Sky, they may be looking at having just 4 teams, but maybe one of them is an at-large or a bubble team because they went 5-3 in conference. Well, if UC Davis or Eastern Washington went out and they're out of conference schedule or something like that, and they have these FBS wins and maybe they were on the bubble, I mean, the committee's got a lot of work to do already. If it, it doesn't play out how we're thinking. Yeah, man, I don't know. I think it's all huge, especially because of the types of teams that won. We didn't get like a Portland State who, they beat an FBS team and no one really was like, yeah, but they're still going to be a playoff caliber team where like sometimes those upsets happen and they don't really affect the outcome of the season. I think with all the teams listed, this is definitely going to affect the outcome of the season with seedings, playoff implications. I don't think there is an important one. I think they were all pretty important.
Yeah, I think Holy Cross is less impactful because I think Holy Cross can just win their conference, right? And even if they were undefeated, they're probably not a seed.
But so let's say this. Let's say they actually go 7-1 in their conference or something like that. I forgot how many teams are in them. I apologize. But then someone else gets the auto bid from the conference. And let's say Holy Cross only has 1 FCS loss to the champs of their conference. Now with this, FBS win, do they actually get a bubble? I mean,
honestly,
I doubt it. And I think they do run the conference like you're saying. But I mean, this just puts a whole different set of parameters on who's going to make the, playoffs in the postseason and all that jazz.
Yeah, it's going to be honestly huge because, I mean, look at 3 of those are Big Sky: Eastern Washington, Montana, UC Davis. And does Eastern see
trash?
Like, I know Eastern and Montana play each other. Right off the top of my head, Kylor, is UC Davis seeing either of those 2 teams in their schedule?
UC Davis, Eastern plays Montana, Montana State, Weber State, and UC Davis. Montana, wow. I believe, just plays Eastern Washington and, Montana State.
Yep.
So, I mean, Montana has the easier one of not playing all the top teams. But, yeah, I mean, Eastern Washington plays everyone.
Just going to be huge. We're not ignoring East Tennessee State. We do have a question later on for them. We'll dive into them a little bit more. Jamie, some final thoughts here, man, before I throw a real tough question up next.
Yeah, I mean, I think looking at this, I think is exactly what Kylor said. There's no inconsequential FBS win here because all of these teams are probably going to make the playoffs, and it's just resume enhancing. So it's not like it was just a throwaway. But the word of caution, just remember, 10, 11 weeks from now, all these teams might not be 9-1, 10-1. Mm-hmm. My team, James Madison, we went to Virginia Tech 11 years ago, September 11th, 2010, and went in there and won. Virginia Tech didn't lose another game until they played Andrew Luck in the Orange Bowl, but JMU went 6-5. Not saying any of these teams are going 6-5, but it's the theme I've been saying all week. Don't overreact. Be really proud. Be really excited. Look forward to what's going to happen, but don't be super surprised if 1 or 2 of these teams don't wind up in the playoffs.
For sure.
Yep. But that's not Montana. I've been hot on them before. I'm backing you, Griz. Semifinals minimum. Montana going to be good this year. How good, though, were they compared to South Dakota State? Kind of leads us into our next question, guys. Mr. Will Siller, awesome UCA fan and football player. Obviously going to see him down in Frisco from Around the ASUN podcast. You can catch their podcast on the FCS Fans Nation Network on YouTube. Guys, Will Siller wants to know, this is a tough one. Which FBS win is more impressive? The Power 5 win of Montana over number 20 Washington, or the boat race of SDSU over Colorado State? What do you guys think? This one is tough. Kylor, I just got to start with you with this one because I know you, Washington, Montana, you just know Pac-12 in that area. What's more impressive?
Well, first, let's just show you, this old classic Washington hat. It looks epic, but we're going to throw them away, and we are going to showcase the Griz this week. Here's my thing. It's not like UW was a lower tier FBS or a Power 5 team. I'm not. Let's just throw out the rankings for a second because I don't even think that's as important because it is preseason. People are ranking teams. We never know how good they are or how bad they are. But when I look at FCS versus FBS upsets, yes, Colorado State got dominated. South Dakota State was 100% the better team. They absolutely floored them. But when you're looking at the talent at Colorado State, it is not that much different from the top tier of the FCS. They just have a little bit more depth. But the talent, they're getting the same type of top tier FCS kids. They're getting, middle tier, 3 stars. Their ranking classes anywhere on average between 80 and 90, sometimes even up in the hundreds. Then you look at a program like UW. This is not a WSU. This is not an Oregon State where their recruiting's in the 60s or 50s, or even when North Dakota State beat Iowa. Iowa's classes were in the 40s to 60s. UW is a top 16, top 20 recruiting program and has been at least the last 5 years. So when you're looking at which one's more impressive, even if Montana had all these people out like they said they are, and even if it is a first-year coach, the type of talent that comes through UW is night and day different from the type of talent that comes through Colorado State. Montana being able to be a top 20 ranking team, it's only happened one other time that I'm aware of, when App State beat Michigan. Those are the types of classes that UW is having, at least the last 4 years. Now their classes are probably going to take a little bit of a dive after watching them lose to Montana. So I think this is 100% a way more impressive win because even the backups for UW should be way more talented than even a top tier FCS program, where Colorado State, they just have more depth, but it is the same type of top tier talent as the FCS.
Yeah, that win probability, if you're watching on YouTube, is sure fun to look at. It's on the bottom left screen there. It's just all purple until finally ESPN, the algorithm was like, okay, maybe Montana's going to win this as the game was close. I love the Power 5 argument, but does one, just kind of like Jamie Williams said, does one big giant FBS win like 2016 NDSU over Iowa or the Virginia Tech win for JMU? Of course, it could be App State 2007 or Kansas State 2013 NDSU, but does that define the entire season where the Griz are still a little bit of a mystery for people? They're not for me. I think they're going to be great. But SDSU, I think everybody was like, well, we know SDSU is great in all areas, but what about the quarterback? And the quarterback looked good, and they piss-pounded that FBS opponent. So Jamie's shrugging because he was calling that QB play. Now, we don't know how they'll play in the Valley in other ways because, like Kylor said, Colorado State, NDSU, Southern Illinois, is there a lot of difference there? Maybe there's not. But you can't look at Sam Houston and be like, they did what they were supposed to against NAU, Northern Arizona, and then tell me, well, SDSU played a crap FBS team. It doesn't really matter much. I'll talk about doing what you're supposed to do. They were just supposed to win, and they absolutely hounded them. So I don't know, man. I prop Power 5, number 20. Okay, you got to give it to the Griz, but we should not downplay SDSU in this realm. And Jamie, you were higher on SDSU's QB play than us. What do you think, man, between these squads?
Yeah, I mean, I've sat on the fence on this question all day, but I'll go ahead and say South Dakota State just because of how bad they beat them. That game wasn't as close as the score was. And South Dakota State was just having their way. They've got the running backs. They've got the receivers. Oladokin played really well. Now, that makes me look good for 1 week. But now these other teams do have tape on him in the South Dakota State offense. So Will it continue? Sure, it'll continue this week against Lindenwood. He'll have some really good games in the Valley, but he's going to have probably a bad game where the team's going to have to bail him out. But for this week, 42-23, not even that close. He looked good. He moved well in the pocket. He knew the offense. He was ready to play. Jackrabbits fans should be really excited and about where their team could be. So should Montana fans. But, yeah, South Dakota State fans should really be excited about what they saw.
Yeah, the offense and defensive lines of SDSU didn't go anywhere. And clearly we know this from the spring seasons, but that Jackrabbit team, I had some people texting me and they're just like, this is their year to lose. It sounds crazy to say that with Sam Houston and JMU and others, but if the QB plays as good as Jamie says they're going to be, that team is going to be scary. So should be fun to see. One word answer here, guys, before we move on to the next question. Which one were you most impressed by? I guess I got to go, as much as SDSU did great, I got to go with Montana because when I woke up the next day, long day with the kids, I opened my phone and I was just like, holy shit, this is, I could not believe the score I saw. So I'll go Montana. Kylor?
Just looking at the actual score, Montana's offense a couple years ago was much better than their defense. They held UW to 7 points and made UW look absolutely awful on offense. So like the lights out defense for the Griz, that's what they were missing. I'm going the Griz. It's way more impressive to me, even though like I do agree with Jamie. I'm not just overlooking SDSU. You got to give them props. They absolutely dominated. The way different caliber of opponent, way different caliber of talent.
Jamie, what do you got, man?
I'll go with the Jacks just because of the way they manhandled. All the points you guys made are dead on, but got to give the Jacks some love too.
Cool. All right, guys, this one's more of a personal one from Mr. Dustin Helton. He wants to know, what was your favorite FCS over FBS win? We will transition a little bit out of the FBS talk here a little bit, guys. Before we answer this one, we also had very relatable questions from Mr. John Connor, John Comer, Brandon Anderson, Rosh Cooper, and yeah, I think those are all my folks who toss those questions out. Once again, if I butcher your last name, first name, that's totally on me. Make sure to send me a better way to pronounce it on Facebook because I am not that intelligent. So, but anyways, guys, to Dustin Helton's specific question, what was your favorite FCS over FBS win? Take it away, Mr. Williams. Let's have a little debate here on which one was better because I got some feelings on which one was the best.
Well, which one was my favorite? I would say East Tennessee State, and just for this reason. For the last couple of years, I have pumped their running back, Quay Holmes. I love that kid. I love the way he runs the ball. I think he's just a hidden gem. And for him to be, out front of a win like that, strong defensive effort from East Tennessee State, which I did expect them to have a strong defense. But Quay Holmes, one of my favorite players in the FCS. Good to see a little bit of him. So that's why East Tennessee State's win was my favorite.
Especially over the SEC, because you're like,
Yes.
SEC, the power, the monster. I have to say, it's got to be Holy Cross for me. And I don't care how crappy UConn is. Like, let's just be realistic. Holy Cross fans, if we have you listen to this, love you to death. You're not winning the national title. It's not going to happen anytime soon. Probably will never happen. But for you to get an FBS win is so huge. People always say it's like their Super Bowl. It's that team's Super Bowl. Holy Cross, that has to feel like their Super Bowl. Of course, winning the conference would be great, being in the playoffs, but likely you're getting shipped to James Madison to just get murdered at round 2 if you get through round 1. Something terrible like that to how your season ends. So to rely on this, it's got to be the little guy, Holy Cross. And East Tennessee State, they're in a little bit better conference than the Patriot. They could make some noise. So give me Holy Cross all day, any day. I don't care how crappy UConn is. They're just like Kansas, So am I wrong, Kylor? Am I wrong?
I don't think anyone's point is wrong. It's who's your favorite FCS over FBS upset. I like all of them. Mine is definitely going to be biased not because UNLV is the best squad out there. They may be the worst, maybe slightly above UConn, but UConn and UNLV are very close to bottom tier of the FBS. The reason why this was my favorite, for one, it was just an exciting game at the end. I mean, anytime it goes into overtime, it was way past my bedtime. But Eric Barrier threw 2 passes in the overtime completely, and it was 2 touchdowns. But the reason why this was my favorite, like I said earlier, Eastern Washington was doing their best to try and lose this game after they were dominating them. In the last few years, that has been like the missing point for Eastern. They play extremely strong, and then they collapse, and they can't come back. They kind of proved it. They are able to still maintain. They're able to still come back, face adversity. They have the heart that maybe they were missing the last few years. But like when I say they were trying to lose it, they missed 3 field goals. They dropped an easy touchdown pass. Everyone's heard me talk about this. We muffed a kick. They were doing everything they could to lose, but since we were dominating them so bad, it still did not matter, and UNLV was at least able to get it overtime. The game was not as close as the scoreboard showed, but when UNLV was getting back to about 20-20, I texted everyone, it's over. This is Eastern Washington of the last few years. We completely collapsed, and we are beating ourselves. They came back when it mattered, and it was exciting to me. It was just a very exciting game. Yeah, UNLV sucks. They really do. But that was my favorite game. Call me biased. It was fun.
No, you earned it. Kylor in that moment texting people that is an NDSU fan when you're down 3-0 in the first quarter. Season's over. Not going to be champions this year. Throw it away. It's done. What was your reaction, man? Okay, so Eastern wins, obviously double overtime, that big play there at the end. I mean, what did you do? What happened?
I just went to bed,
You didn't jump up and down. My video from when we beat Iowa is insane. So
no, I was upset and super happy at the same time. I was upset we even let UNLV come back because, like I said, if you did not watch the game, you think this was a very close competitive game. It really wasn't a close and competitive game. Eastern Washington was trying to lose, but I love the heart of the kids. They came back, especially on that goal line stand where we decided to go for 2 in the double overtime. We got it. UNLV scored. Their new secondary quarterback was electric, and they went for 2 when we stopped them on the 1-inch yard line. It was this NDSU 2010 moment, but we had great camera angles. You could see he did not cross the actual goal line. He didn't fumble. He didn't do any of that. So, no, I mean, it was just a great thing to see. But more, I was just happy I wasn't going to be pissed off the rest of the night.
An NDSU goal line 2010 moment. How do I remove Kylor from this screen? Just trying to figure it out. All right, good stuff. Yeah, I mean, we're all happy for all of them, Dustin. It's great to see those, but favorites there, you got a good variety. And now we're going to get into a little bit of heat, I think, because this next question from Mr. Chris Hammond, guys, rolls us right into, is the Big Sky better than the Missouri Valley? Stir the pot. Here we go.
Well, can I
yeah,
give you
Kylor,
real quick?
Oh, go ahead, man.
I
definitely
think
want you to
Chris
start.
Hammond asked, is the Big Sky better than the Mountain West? But let's
what he
stick
asked?
Yeah.
I think so.
And it was a trolling job, but let's go with yours because it is more fun. Screw you, Chris. You're an admin. We're allowed to say your question sucked, and we're gonna actually talk about this.
I got the abbreviation wrong, and I'm just super biased. That Valley
super biased.
I completely made the Mountain West irrelevant, kind of like it is, right, Chris? Gotcha.
Unbiased Bison, completely biased Valley guy.
Yeah, 100 biased towards the Valley. Kylor, in my twisted question here from Chris and me, I guess, you've been high on this reel. I think the Valley's better. Big Sky's got to prove it here, but 3 FBS wins, teams people are high on right now. Are we looking at a year where the Valley's not as good as the Big Sky?
I think right now it is much closer than anyone was anticipating before the beginning of the year. And I'm probably on that bandwagon of it is closer than I thought. Because I do think before the season, I was saying Valley's clear-cut number 1. Now some people can probably make arguments for the Big Sky being better than the Valley. I'm still not one of them. When you look at some of the competitive games of the Valley, sure, they didn't have the same amount of FBS wins as us or whatever. They were also playing overall better teams. I mean, Missouri State, they looked damn good against Oklahoma State. You had Northern Iowa, who everyone is making fun of. They looked really good against, Iowa, a ranked top 10 team. Overall, I still think the Valley is taking the lead. I still think they are the best conference, but maybe it's not light years ahead of the Big Sky where it has been in the last few seasons. Maybe the Big Sky's only been better than the Valley once out of the last 11 years. Maybe it's closer, but I do think at least the Valley and the Big Sky separated themselves from the rest of the FCS in terms of full conference right now.
Do a little hypothetical for me. This is so early to remotely ask this question, obviously, but let's do it because we just do crazy things around here. If you had 3 Valley teams and 3 Big Sky teams on the same side of the bracket, and the top 2 are Montana 3 and number 4 SDSU, and mixed in there is NDSU, Southern Illinois, Eastern Washington, and let's go with, give me your third best top
Weber.
Big Sky. Weber. Who are you most confident goes to Frisco and or ends up in like semifinal range in that realm? Like, do you think it's more Big Sky? Do you think it's split and then a Big Sky team goes? How do you think that would play out, Kylor? Make it twist it a little bit.
I think it literally would depend on who is the home field team on that one. South Dakota State has not done great when traveling to Montana. I mean, Montana is just a different beast. Even though maybe I think South Dakota State is a better team than Montana overall, I'll probably favor Montana if Montana or South Dakota State is traveling to Griz in December. I probably would just favor Montana. So I think it really depends on the seeding, but if you're just looking at which one would I right now bet on, I'd probably bet on the Valley right now. Just overall, I'd bet on the Valley, but I think it really depends on who's going to where before I can make that real assessment.
Yeah, I think that kind of speaks to the strength of how strong this year is. People have no idea, and the recovery of the spring and having all these rosters back. But even before that, I mean, there are legitimately, in my mind, 5 national title contenders, and it wouldn't shock me to see 6 to 8 teams that could make it to Frisco. But, every year it's been like NDSU and this team, or maybe these 3 teams. And now we have like 5 squads. I know I'm veering a little away from Big Sky, Missouri Valley, but just right there between those 6, you're like, who's at home? I mean, that's what you're asking. So, Jamie, I feel like I'm ignoring you here. I apologize, my man. Come back in and confirm Kylor's feelings or destroy them.
Okay, well, let's think. We're dealing facts, like Kylor likes. So the Big Sky lost 8 games. The Missouri Valley lost 4 games. But the CAA lost only 4 games and 2 were to themselves. So why not the CAA?
Oh.
I mean, Morehead State, Morgan State, Lehigh. Come on. The CAA is so dumb. No, the answer is Missouri Valley. I mean, look how close their bottom teams played to their FBS competition. I had to throw the CAA in there. You didn't let me talk for like 3 minutes, so I had to pump us a little bit. But, I mean, Kyler's right. The gap is closed, and, I still think the CAA is good and deep. And they're still the 3, but they're not going to get those signature kind of wins that you're seeing because we're playing Morgan State, Morehead State, Towson goes 8 miles and whips Morgan State. So what? We whip Morehead State. So what? So it's great to see these teams, challenge each other and challenge themselves. But yeah, the Valley just, they're still ahead. To answer Matt's question, I still think out of those, I would be most confident in South Dakota State because they've done it and their quarterback has kind of proved it. North Dakota State is who they are, but let's see a little bit more out of Quincy as a freshman. So long-winded, half-joking answer, but yeah, I'll go with the Valley.
No NDSU questions this entire podcast. I need to call some people out. Basically anybody who says, I wish you'd talk more about this, and our reply every time is, if you ask it, we will answer it. We're not forcing any JMU or NDSU here because we didn't get no questions. So you guys guide the podcast. Love it, gentlemen. And I love this next question because, of course, I'm passionate about it. And here we go, Mr. Colby Peterson. Are the Griz a clear-cut favorite for the Big Sky Championship, or will the season schedule be a dogfight with tons of good teams battling for the auto bid spot? So what do you think there, Jamie? You're kind of the outsider perspective with your dominant CAA and their performances. Are the Griz a clear-cut favorite? Because you know my feelings on it. I'm going yes.
Clear-cut, no. Are they the favorite? Maybe. Kylor knows the schedules better than I do. I don't know exactly who avoids who. I mean, Weber's still going to be good. Eastern's going to be good. Montana looks really good. But let's face it, everybody's 0-0 in the conference. yes, there's some really good looking wins, but I don't think anybody says they've separated themselves, in the conference as the favorite. I mean, Montana looked great. Weber not as much against a really good Utah team, but I think still there's 3 or 4 teams that you could look at, and don't count out Montana State, who gave Wyoming all they could handle.
Yep.
I think ask me this question in 4 or 5 weeks, I'll probably have a better answer, but clear cut, I'd say no. But current favorite based off of what's happened, sure, that's the recency bias and the what have you done for me lately. People would lean Montana, but I'm not sure that's who's going to be standing when the season ends.
Yeah, I remember Montana in 2015 beating NDSU in the first game and then losing to Cal Poly the next week. Not the same scenario, but you never know what can happen. I'm kind of like you, Jamie. Ask me around November 20th range, and I'll have this answer just figured out. No, I think the Griz are the clear-cut favorite. On YouTube here on the screen, guys, we have their schedule. We've said it in the past. It comes down to them going to Eastern Washington on October 2nd on the Red in the Inferno, and then they will play Montana State at home, the final game of the regular season, which I think they will just be beyond jacked for. But look at the rest of the schedule, and it's not that a schedule defines a team. I think the team itself, the lines, the defense, everything's improved. Senior veteran quarterback, good coaching staff that has their system developed. Their opponents, they're at home against Cal Poly, Western Illinois, Sacramento State comes to town, Dixie State. They're going to Idaho. They're going to Northern Arizona. I mean, I don't see the Griz slipping up besides losing, if one game, a close game, to maybe Montana State or Eastern, who also have to go play tough schedules. So
don't overlook the 12th man of the Kibbe Dome being the scoreboard. So just keep that in mind as a wild card.
Well, that Kibbe Dome, yeah, it's a pretty solid place. Mountain West venues, they wish they had that type of capacity in that kind of dome. I just am so sold on Montana, guys, and I'll eat my words. Maybe they'll be like my Chattanooga, and it's all going to blow up in my face earlier than later. But I just don't see how they aren't the clear-cut favorites at this point, unless you're just high on like a Montana State upsetting them at the end, or Weber, and I've never been sold on Weber. So, Kylor, man, call me crazy or call me right. You're the true facts guy here. What do you got?
I think as of right now, and we even alluded to this in like the preseason episode, I agreed with Matt that Montana probably has the best chance to win the conference. I don't think beating UW changes that. Obviously, I don't think now they have some negative take that, now they're not going to, potentially win the conference. But I'm looking at Montana. They have probably the easiest conference schedule. Weber State also doesn't have that tough of a conference schedule. When you look at them, I mean, they have Montana State at home. They have UC Davis at home. Their only tough game on the road is to Eastern Washington. Eastern Washington has a much tougher schedule, but the nice thing is every single tough game is at home besides UC Davis. Eric Berrier's never lost at home. So, I mean, there's tons of different things to throw out there. I would say, yes, Montana probably has a favorite to win, but I still think Montana probably drops one in the season somehow. Is it going to be to Montana State? Is it going to be to Eastern? I'm not sure. Maybe even NAU, who for some reason is a spooky place to play for some teams. Not all teams, but for some teams, they get up for some teams more than others. So, I mean, yes, Montana, if I had to lean on it, they probably have a favorite chance, but I think we are going to see multiple 7-1 teams. Montana will probably get the higher of the seeds, but I think we're going to see a couple different 7-1 teams, and there's probably going to be a share of the title, just like there always is in the Big Sky.
Do you think it's a little bit of what have you done for me lately with that mentality? If like Weber was in their spot right now, like Weber's won the Big Sky a bunch, and like, they've been in the playoffs, they've been involved more. Do you think everyone would be like, oh my gosh, Weber's going to win this thing? If you just swap names and recognition, the way people like couldn't quite look at SDSU last year the way they have like NDSU, or is that not really relatable here?
Well, I mean, when you look at who are the top 2 teams in the preseason for the Big Sky right now, it has been Weber and Montana. I'm pretty sure those have been like the top 2 favorites most likely to win. They avoid each other, and they each only have one tough road game, like in conference. So, I mean, that's where I'm saying I have no clue who's going to win. If I had to put a bet down, I would bet on Montana right now because I think they have the easiest of the schedules, but it's not a guarantee that they are going to go 8-0, even if they beat UW. We have seen teams beat like when Eastern Washington beat Oregon State, yeah, we went undefeated in the Big Sky, but we also lost to a pretty bad FBS team that we should have won. Like, things happen. It just depends on who you're playing. Anything can happen on a Saturday. So I would bet on Montana right now if you forced a gun to my head on bet for one team to win the Big Sky. But I don't think it's a clear-cut favorite due to unbalanced schedules, as always.
All right, Griz, you'll have to see. We'll have to see if you can pull it off as we move through the season. It is not going to be easy, even on an easier Big Sky schedule. Those big 3 games are always tough. Guys, Mr. Dustin Perman and Adam Peterson with a similar question. They want to know who is the biggest winner and loser this week. I love this right off the bat. Who are you looking at and you're like, heck yeah, what a win. And who are you looking at where you go, ooh, not too hot to start this season off. FBS ones are kind of cop-outs here, but I guess you could use it if you want. Mr. Williams, kick us off here. Biggest winner, biggest loser.
I'm going to start with the biggest loser. And the biggest loser is North Carolina A&T. All we heard all offseason long was how good they're going to be. We're going to go undefeated. We're going to Frisco. Their fans wrote a check their team's ass couldn't cash. And the game didn't appear to be as close as what the score even indicated. We've got the best running back in the FCS. Now, I know John Maine Martin was dinged up a little bit, 33 yards. Oh, we've got the best defense in the Big South or whatever they want to say. Hamp Sisson threw for over 300 yards. Biggest loser, North Carolina A&T. I mean, the biggest winner probably is Montana. I mean, look where they went from the polls. I mean, it's hard to go against that. I mean, let me think. I'll give it to a team that just for a weird reason that I don't particularly care for. Youngstown State. That game was fun, so that was a big win for me. Just to watch that game be fun. It doesn't impact anything in the standings. I think they both stink, but I just want to call out how good that game was, back and forth. The running back for Youngstown State was awesome. Cameron Ward for Incarnate Word was good. So I just want to call that game out. So I'm going to take this opportunity to do it.
Yeah, on my Twitter, it was from a joke about people saying Youngstown was going to beat UND in the spring season because everyone said, I think they're vastly improving. And whoever tweeted that at me, they were 1-5 at the time. So, at halftime, I quoted out to Youngstown vastly improving because they were getting kicked. And then, of course, they won. So that's a classic Matt situation where I think I know what I'm talking about. But
you got Danucci.
I got Danucci. Yeah, but I didn't delete it. I didn't delete that tweet. I'll stand on it. Guys, I'm going to go a little bit off the wall here with this question, but I think I'm solid with my answers. I'm going to go all the way to the Pioneer League, and I'm going to start with my my biggest loser, and that's going to be San Diego. San Diego losing to Cal Poly, and I know Cal Poly's got a new coach, someone Kylor appreciates, and they've got a new program, but it's not like that's established. Cal Poly has not been great in the past couple of years. And San Diego's been the Big Sky killer in the playoffs a few times. They've dominated the Pioneer League outside that weird spring season. So for them to lose right off the bat to, I would say, a much lower tier Big Sky team, the Cal Poly Mustangs winning 28-17 over San Diego. So I will say the San Diego Pioneer champions, them losing in week 1. I think that's a bad loss for them. But if they can just win the conference, they're going to be fine. And then I'm going to stay in the Pioneer League because I think the biggest winner is VMI beating Davidson. So Davidson is the champ from the Pioneer League because VMI is one of those teams where you're like, oh yeah, they're ranked and they're pretty good. They also have Seth Morgan at quarterback who had to replace their absolute Reese Husted, their all-star. So for Davidson to win 45-21 or whatever it was, just doing what a probably not seeded playoff team will do to an auto bid is pretty impressive to me. Once again, just showing from the spring they are who we thought they were. So kudos to VMI on beating what could be an auto bid Pioneer team. So there you go. I'm going to stick with the Pioneer League. Biggest winner, biggest loser. Mr. Neal, what do you got?
All right, I'm going to take it to a different level. None of my biggest winners and biggest losers. I mean, there's going to be an FCS team involved with them, but I'm not given the awards really to much of the FCS right now. I'm going to say my biggest winner. Let's go Southern Connecticut over Connecticut CCSU because Those are most likely what most people were thinking were going to be the NEC champs, right? I mean, you can kind of pick a dart, but they have been one of the more dominant teams in the NEC. You think they would actually be able to beat their in-state rival, that D2 team. I don't even know if they're an in-state rival or not, but I got to give it to that, Southern Connecticut for my biggest winner for taking down one of the favorites in the NEC. Then my biggest loser. This is an FCS team that won. It's not like they lost. But they did not look good against an NAIA team. Now, we had one person on the page start arguing with us that NAIA is really good. It is different if you are considered to be one of the top teams in your conference. And I'm talking about Kennesaw State versus Reinhardt. It's not even a D2 team. This is an NAIA team. So at the end of the day, the nice thing was, I think it was Jacob Martinez kind of posted on the page that was like, hey, Kennesaw State didn't look good. We have some things to clean up. But you beat an NAIA team by only 10. Now, I get you had a lot of starters out. But this is that same thing when now it's just judging Montana versus UW. The talent difference is so much larger. You should be able to win with your backups. If you played a whole first, second string, offense and defense on just your backups, you should still be able to win and still be able to win pretty hefty. So I get they are a very good NAIA team, but that is multiple differences. Kennesaw State, you are my loser. But Jamie, I loved your pick because those were title contenders, right? You got to shut up or, put it on the paper and do your work. Put up or shut up. And they just did not do either.
Yeah, we had a lot of reaction from NCAA fans. We love having them. We've had so many good HBCU fans jumping onto the page. But yeah, Jamie, you pushed back on folks a lot all summer long, just saying, hey, hold your horses here, because don't think you're just going to step in and just dominate right away. It might take a little bit. And they're still a good program. They still got a shot, but that's a huge win for Furman. So kudos to you there, Mr. Williams. Well predicted. And Mr. Jamie Williams, I'm going to stick it with you, my man. We're going to keep going here because I think this one is something you have a lot of intel on. You've really cared more about this conference than anybody else. Not that we don't care about everybody, but the Southern Conference is kind of like your mini baby out there on the East Coast. You pay attention to it frequently. Great question here. Wofford, Furman, and VMI all had solid performances. And of course, ETSU had their amazing victory over Vandy. Could we be looking at 2 or even 3 bids for the SoCon this year? Mr. Steve Seuss wants to know. Steve does some awesome whiteboard playoff prediction stuff all the way through the year. We love his posts on the page. Additionally, we had questions from Bruce Edmiston and Kevin Geeter. Bruce wants to know a little bit more about that ETSU. Kevin Geeter wants a little bit more of your NCAT and Furman reaction, Jamie. I know that's a lot, but tell us about the SoCon. Tell us about the games. What were your reactions to this conference over the weekend?
So basically, it's what I come to expect from the Southern Conference. When I started really diving in on what I thought was going to happen in the fall and looking through predictions and what teams have coming in, there are 9 teams in the Southern Conference. There are 6.5 I could see winning the conference. Western Carolina has a new coach, Kerwin Bell. It's going to take some time. He's going to bring some offense. They played really well against Eastern Kentucky, so that's my bottom team there. And the Citadel, I know they've got, some potential, but I don't see them jumping up. Mercer's that half team. Don't care that they blew out Point. I think they've got some of the better linebackers in the country. I think they've got an improving young quarterback. But then throw the rest of the other 5 teams in a blender, and any of them could win it. And I think that's what you saw with good wins by those teams. I think of those teams, the worst win was Wofford only beating Elon by a couple, but Furman beating A&T, VMI beating Davidson, East Tennessee State. That's huge. And you're seeing a lot of talent out of the Southern Conference. And I was disappointed in Chattanooga, but I don't think that they're necessarily not good and not going to be competitive. From their side, I think Austin Peay, I just completely underrated them, and Austin Peay is damn good. So Chattanooga, I think, will be okay once we get into Southern Conference play, but who's going to win? I didn't even mention Samford. I mean, Samford with that offense, they could just run anybody out of the stadium. So, yeah, I mean, watch the Southern Conference this year. The question, is it a 2 or 3 bid league? Yes, I think it is. It's definitely a 2-bid league. And depending on how those other teams fall, they could get a third bid because the Big South looks a little shaky after 1 week. And again, don't overreact. Southland's probably a 1-bid league. Ohio Valley, probably a 1-bid league. So unless you're going to get 5 each from the Big Three, which I don't think you are, I think the Southern Conference definitely gets 2. And depending on how it goes, they could get a third.
Because we're up to 10 auto bids, correct? We're at 10 auto bids for the FCS playoffs. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I think it's 11 now.
We might be up to 11. We'll have to Google that.
10 at large. 10 at large.
Oh, yep. Sorry.
Sorry,
So,
you might have think of it.
Imagine the Valley getting 4 total teams, including the auto bid. Imagine them getting 4. Imagine the Big Sky getting maybe 4. Imagine the CAA getting 3. So some conference somewhere is getting 2, right? That's just basic math. Someone else somewhere is going to pull that off. And between the AQ7 Alliance, you've got an auto bid coming right there. And then who's going to drop additionally from that behind Sam Houston, who's likely to win it? I'd say 2 is a pretty good possibility, but I don't know. Kylor, 2-3 teams coming from this conference here?
Well, the last few years I've been super down on the SoCon. Every single year I keep saying they're regressing. Week 1, this is the best the SoCon's looked in week 1 in a long time. Of course, now it's just maybe a little too early to say, are they going to be a 3-bid team? I think I'd agree with at least you guys saying they definitely look like a 2-bid conference right now with the potential to be a 3, maybe even a 4. With how the teams are playing week 1, there's so much speculation. There's tons of different teams right now who have a playoff caliber resume. They're not going to when they start beating up each other, and then losses are going to start to accrue. I would say very safe bet to, probably say they're at least a minimum of a 2. They could potentially be a 3, but I think they'll start to beat each other up a little bit more. But yeah, VMI looks good. You have Sanford that looks good, at least offensively. Wofford, they've kind of been the team that's dominated the SoCon in the last 5 years. ETSU, they were a bubble team last year and was the first one left out or maybe second one left out?
Yeah, Jason Grooms. Jason Grooms, remember him predicting them and going through the reasoning and kind of popped our light bulb? We're like, oh yeah, they probably should be in the playoffs. When Missouri State beat them out, we were all like, what? No way.
Yeah, they look like they're a playoff team. Furman right off the bat looks like a playoff team. And then Chattanooga, right now they don't, but they can come back. Who knows what's going to happen in the SoCon? The last few years, it has been a complete S show, if you will. I kind of blurred myself out on that one because they've just started beating up each other, and then everyone's 500 in the conference. And maybe one person is, they're like a 600 win percent, or they've just won 1 game instead of everyone else's one more. It looks right now like there's a lot of tough teams in the SoCon that could range anywhere from a ranked 15 to maybe 35. And I think they're going to start beating up each other. So 2 easy, 3 potentially. Yeah. 3 or more potentially. Who knows what's going to happen in the other conferences too.
And honestly, that means a lot from both of these gentlemen. I am more of the heart reactor. That's why I'm usually wrong. I'm more of the guy who just kind of throws things out because I feel emotions. Kylor and Jamie don't give a crap about your emotions or your heart. They're just going to tell you the facts. They're going to tell you how it is, and they make predictions off of logic. So that means a lot from all those guys asking questions about the SoCon, that on this podcast, those 2 gentlemen are like, yeah, I think 2 is you're going to lock that in, possibly 3. So that's pretty big. That's quite the vote of confidence there, Mr. Neal and Mr. Williams, from you guys.
Well, I think out of conference is super important, especially when you're looking at who they beat. Elon is a top half of the CAA. Most people would think, right, Jamie? You just nod.
I do, but the preseason poll, 12.
Yeah. So, they should be. Furman, most people were thinking NCA&T was probably the second team from the Big South. Furman just absolutely destroyed them. Then you have SU, who knows? Obviously, they look pretty good. The only really bummer from week 1 is Chattanooga lost to Austin P, who's probably going to be the OVC champs.
Yep.
But that's the only negative thing that's happened throughout the SoCon week 1.
Crazy. SoCon coming back up. So it's going to be exciting to see how that conference finishes, along with all the conferences And gentlemen, that completes the 7 main questions. We twisted in some additional folks. Thanks to everybody who tossed them out to us. We've got 5 or 6 here quick hit questions. We'll do these one at a time. So now it's time to get into my favorite segment because it involves us doing these quickly, the gut reaction, the quick hit questions.
Just because your question is answered quickly doesn't mean we don't care. These are the quick hit questions of the week.
How'd that feel, gentlemen? How'd that feel for you?
I like it.
I do.
A little bit of a twist. All right, guys, we're going to kick it off easy here for you. Jamie, this one's going to you, man, because you are high on the quarterback play and everything they bring back. Mr. Seth Meyer wants to know, who is your national title favorite after week 1, and why is it South Dakota State?
It is South Dakota State because they look like the most complete team in the entire FCS. They got the best offensive line. They got 2 stud running backs. They got a good defense. I really love Don Gardner, their cornerback, and Oladokin at quarterback. Yeah, that's why. South Dakota State.
Jack Rabbits, lots of expectations. Time to rise up. Mr. Kylor Neal, you call out Griz fans more than anybody. You give them you have no love for them, but you'll give them love if they have a good victory. So Jeremiah Rash, Landon Johnston, I believe Jeremiah being Southern Illinois, Landon I think is an EW fan. I apologize if I'm wrong. He wants to know who will be the most obnoxious fan base in the next week and why is it Montana? He said, just kidding, don't answer that on the podcast, but we're going to. You put it in the comments section. Lock it in, Jeremiah. Kylor, why is Montana the most obnoxious?
I mean, even when they're not winning, they're still a top 3 most obnoxious fan base in the FCS. Now they have the most historic win in their program history, coming off a top 20 recruiting FBS program. Yeah, they're going to be ridiculous. They're going to be unbearable. They're going to be obnoxious. But you know what? They deserve to be right now. We give them so much crap as much as they give it back. Montana's back. Montana's back. Maybe they are back. They deserve to be obnoxious. Let's go, Griz fans. Be obnoxious. This is your time.
They certainly earned it, gentlemen. Mr. Williams, did the spring season help the FCS over FBS wins? We're already at 6. Jacob Martinez and Hall Jones kind of want to know this. Hall had some additional take on that with like player depth and scholarships and who we're all carrying. Tell me a little bit about that. Do you think the spring season helped us early on?
I think it did, but not for the reason that you're thinking. It's not for the play on the field because people got reps in the spring, because Montana didn't, so they broke that mold. Why it helps, it's because of the additional scholarships that you now have. You now have that depth. JMU is basically an FBS team this fall. They've got 83 guys on scholarship. That's an FBS team because of the carryover and allowing the free year in the spring. So everybody has more depth. There's a lot of experienced 5th and 6th year players who aren't going to get rattled at Washington, at Vanderbilt, at Connecticut, in a big stadium in Vegas. Those guys aren't going to get rattled. They've been there. They've done that. The fact that you get that extra carryover, you got more experience on your team. Lots of teams looking like FBS on their scholarship levels this year. That's why the spring season helped.
Good take, my man. We hope to see more upsets as these things keep on going. Brian Thompson wants to know, guys, Furman got lucky or A&T is overrated, as I think we've seen some posts back and forth about this. I'll just take this easy. Certainly the ball can bounce a certain way and a ref can make a bad call. But at the end of the day, your success is 99% on you. So whether your team was prepared or not, whether your coaching staff showed up, whether somebody had a beer the night before, every small thing goes into details and preparation matters. So any win is not involved with luck. There's a lot of preparation and hard work these guys put in. So congrats to Furman. F you all day, as they say down there. So congrats to them on that big win. All right, gentlemen, I hope you're ready for this. It's our final one before we get to our game of the week. Shout out to Ryan Greenhagen of Fordham for tying the NCAA record for 30 tackles at Nebraska. Jamie, you're going to correct me?
Just today, they released a review of the game. Greenhagen now has 31, which is now an FCS record.
Oh, no way. Golf claps, golf claps. That's unbelievable. That's awesome. So edit the banner on the bottom. That's amazing. NCAA record 31 tackles. Josh Hoffman, a Jackrabbits fan, wants to know What is your guys' single best athletic accomplishment ever? So a personal question. He doesn't care if it's like intramural sports, video games, whatever you got. What is your best accomplishment? Everyone gets to answer this one before the game of the week. Kylor, single best athletic accomplishment ever.
Can I say 2?
Since you're so athletic, yes.
Okay. 8th grade, I went to Odessa, Washington to go in the Deutsches Fest fun run. You know, it was a 5K. I finished 3rd overall. You're welcome. Yeah. Now it looks like I've never ran in my life.
Top 3, baby.
Top 3. You're welcome. Then the other one, again, this is what you would not view when you look at me, because I'm a little fluffier now than I've ever been. But back in college, I bench pressed over 355 pounds. That's my most athletic thing that I've ever done, and it does not require any athleticism, just strength. But I was stronger than some of the Eastern Washington football players. Just saying that.
That is crazy. Well, top 3. I felt like semi-pro in that moment in the movie with like fourth place, but you got 3rd. So, Jamie, greatest single accomplishment of all time for you athletically.
I'm going with 2 as well. Senior year of high school playing basketball, had 27 out of 50 points in a win. And baseball as a freshman had a game-winning bases clearing triple. After we were down 2, bases were loaded.
Nice. I could go a variety of ways with sports, but I went to Maple Valley in Buffalo, North Dakota. Yeah, we played 9-man for a while. You could just be on the team. Like, you know, the varsity squad had 14 people. So I'm going to completely go away from athletics. I was the kid. I had to buy all my own stuff. So I bought an Xbox when the Xbox 360 was out. You know, I bought the Super Nintendo when N64 was out. So I bought this Xbox and I can only afford a game called Fusion Frenzy. It's like a party game, like, you know, Mario Party and stuff. And that's the only game I had for 8 months. And that's all I played for nearly a year. To this day, Fusion Frenzy, not like single game modes, like the final standings where there's 1st, 2nd, 3rd, never been beat by anybody, ever. Undefeated, never lost, as Mr. Ball would say. So I am undefeated in a completely irrelevant video game from 14 years ago. And yeah, I'm very proud of that.
I beat Bo Jackson in Tecmo Bowl too.
Woo!
Oh,
no one's done that. You're a liar.
Yeah,
freaking liar.
Unreal. All right, guys, let's get into our game of the week. Not a lot of huge matchups this week. We'll see what happens. Maybe there will be some upsets. But a big one here would be the game of the week, number 19 Central Arkansas versus number 23 Missouri State. They're both 0-1 after FBS losses. Central Arkansas losing kind of heavily to Arkansas State, 40-21. And Missouri State only losing 23-16 to Oklahoma State. So let's go around the table. We'll do some predictions. Mr. Williams, starting with you, my man. Prediction for game of the week.
I'm going to go with Central Arkansas here. I just really like what they have on offense with Braylon Smith, Juan Winningham, Tyler Hudson. I think that's going to be enough for a 31-23 victory for the Bears. There we go.
You're going with yep. You said the Bears, and I was like,
Central Arkansas
State.
Bears.
Yeah.
That is true. Bear on bear crime.
Right.
Better than a grizzly.
What will the purple bear or the maroon bear be the victor here, my man?
I'm gonna go. All right, Missouri State. They turned around their spring season. They played in the fall and spring of last season. Fall, they looked really awful. Spring, they looked like they were much better. They looked really good this week against Oklahoma State. And, you know, UCA didn't look that great against, Arkansas State. I think I'm going to go with Petrino. I think I'm going to go with Missouri State beating UCA in a very close battle, but maybe like 27-24, because UCA does have amazing talents, probably the best 1-2 wide receiver in the game in terms of, you know, an actual wide receiver room. But Missouri State's defense looked pretty good. So, yeah, give me Missouri State right now. Who would have thought I would have said that in preseason?
You just made Hammond's day.
Yeah.
I am going to go with I was super critical of Missouri State in the spring. I still am. I wasn't impressed by their resume at all. I didn't think they should have been a playoff team. To me, didn't do nothing much special. I think they beat Southern Illinois close, which was a good win. But if I'm in Vegas or if I'm betting and I'm putting money down with sports gambling, I don't really care who the teams are. If they're pretty equal, I'm going to take the team coming off a really close, almost upset loss. I think, especially at home. Give me the home team, almost beat Oklahoma State. They're going to ride that motivation. So it's weird that I think Central Arkansas is better. I think situationally, the momentum and the location is going to benefit Missouri State. So I'll take Missouri State, even though I don't have faith in them. Does that make sense? So
that's what I'm doing.
Perfect. They can blow me up after this. And Bobby Petrino, you can tweet at me. That would be awesome, by the way. So, all right, boys, game of the week wrapped up. Gentlemen, we are heading our way into week number 2 of the FCS season. It's already seeming like it's flying by. You guys have listened to the FCS Fans Nation podcast. Make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, subscribe, like this podcast here on YouTube. We're excited to get things going. Jamie, since we ignored you a little bit, man, final thoughts as we roll into week 2.
Actually get to see my team play somebody who might put up a fight. We're going to play Maine, so let's see what my team's actually made of. We got a MASH unit. Unfortunately, our All-American left tackle Liam Fornato is done for the year, but we're not going to make any excuses. Next man up. Let's see what happens. NDSU playing the Beacons, a true competitor. So, all right, no matter what your squad is, no matter who you're cheering for, thanks for tuning in the FCS Fans Nation podcast. We will catch you guys after week 2 for more reaction. We cannot wait for another week of solid, full attended football. Have a good one, everybody. Catch you on the flip. Boom.
Thank you for listening to the FCS Fans Nation podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe to this podcast on your preferred listening platform, whether it's Apple, Spotify, Google, or even YouTube. And make sure to follow our FCS Fans Nation social media pages on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you for listening to the premier podcast for FCS football. Boom.
You're on mute, bud.